Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for the Tech Guy is provided by Cachefly. CACHEFLY.com. Hi, this is Leo Laporte, and this is my Tech Guy podcast. This show originally aired on the premier radio networks, including 170 of the best stations in the U.S., on Sunday, September 25th, 2011. This is episode 808. Enjoy. The Tech Guy podcast is brought to you by Gazelle, the easy way to sell or recycle the used gadgets lying around your home or office. Don't just sell it, Gazelle it. Gazelle your used gadgets today at gazelle.com. Well, hey, how are you today? Leo Laporte here, the Tech Guy. And this is it, the time we talk about computers and the internet, cell phones and camcorders, MP3 players, home theater, and what the heck is going on with Facebook? Yes, it's that show. 8888 Ask Leo. If you have a question, a comment, a suggestion, you want to talk about what's going on with Facebook, this is the time to do it. 8888 Ask Leo. That's the number. 888-827-5536. Facebook made a bunch of announcements this week, and of course they launched some other stuff before the announcement, including this new timeline, the new profiles, the new ticker. It just looks different, doesn't it? And I think that we talked about this a little bit yesterday, and I wasn't able to get anybody to call in and complain, which is funny because, you know, CNN said that you're all very unhappy. I saw it on the TV. It said 750 million Facebook users cry out in pain. And I think that Triumph in our chat room is probably saying it for everyone when he says or she says, I'm not sure how I feel about the Facebook changes. I think that's kind of the general feeling. We won't really know until they've all rolled out. It's immediately apparent if you go to your Facebook page that something has changed. I mean, you've got this live ticker going on the right-hand side saying, you know, Joe just listened to Mykonos by Fleet Foxes on Spotify. Rob just added new photos to his album Fun Metal Sculpture. Mary just shared Sandra's photo, things like that. In the middle, you've got something completely different, and this is a little scary, I think, because it's kind of opaque as to what's happening. You've got what used to be the wall, and it's now a timeline and top stories, but it's kind of unclear how a story gets here. Where you used to have a status form to fill out, you now have three things: update status, add photo, ask question. All of a sudden, you've got these lists that you never made that just kind of happened automatically of people you work with, your family, your close friends. It really is quite different. And it's a big gamble from the point of view of Facebook. I know they're well aware of what a gamble this is, because it's a complete redesign of a site that is really designed for people who are not into computers particularly. And here's the problem. The people who design websites, who design software, who design hardware are all tech enthusiasts. They're hardcore geeks. But the people who are using this stuff these days are normal people. Now, I admit that I am in the former camp. I am kind of a geek. Okay, I admit it. And probably many of those who listen to the show are kind of geeky. But we all can think of family members, friends, work buddies who just are not literate. But they are big Facebook users, aren't they? They love Facebook. They love Facebook. Why? Because it's a great, easy, simple way to connect with friends. But lately, I think there's been some rising discomfort because it seems like Facebook not only is changing, but the ground is shifting underneath your feet. What used to be private isn't private anymore. Now there are these options, a lot of them, for controlling what people see, suddenly it feels like maybe you don't really have control of your Facebook account, especially when you go to a website and it says, oh, hi, Leo. 15 of your friends are already friends here. Who? How, what? Huh? Dave Weiner wrote a really, I think, astute article on his blog, Scripting News, yesterday about the new Facebook. Facebook is scaring me. Yesterday, he says, I wrote that Twitter should be scared of Facebook. Well, today, it's worse. I, as a mere user of Facebook, am seriously scared of them. Every time they make a change, people get angry. I have never been angry myself because I've always assumed everything I post to Facebook is public. And that's true. That's something I've been telling you for some time, is that despite the promise that Facebook made that everything you post there is private, that's really how they started, isn't it? They said, well, we'll make this great site where you can post anything you want, but only people you say can see it can see it. You have complete control over this. Well, that's changing, isn't it? Facebook has really decided that they want to be a public-facing site. What does that mean? Well, like Twitter is. You know, when you post something on Twitter, you're posting it to the world, right? That's the opposite of Facebook. But for some reason I'm not sure I completely understand, Facebook has decided it wants to be more like Twitter and less like Facebook, which is weird because Facebook is easily the most successful site in history. 750 million active users. Mark Zuckerberg this week said that this month they'd had for the first time ever 500 million visitors in one day. I can't think of any site that has ever had anywhere close to a 500 million uniques in one day. That's a sixth of the, what is that, a sixth? A 12th of the world's population visiting in one day. Facebook has 4% of all the photos ever taken on there. Now, but let me make that stat clear. 4% of all photos, not all photos taken this year, not all photos taken with digital cameras, all photos ever taken in the history of humankind, 4% are on Facebook. What? This is the most successful site of all time, and they're deciding to do something different. Yesterday, I talked a little bit about the word pivot. It's used widely in Silicon Valley for a company that tries something, usually a startup, that has an idea, a business model that doesn't work. Flickr is a good example. The photo sharing site, it was originally a gaming site. Did you know that? The original idea of Flickr, when Stuart Butterfield and Katerina Fake started it, was we're going to make a social gaming site. They realized that it was the photo sharing that people really liked, and they said, okay, well, we'll do that. That's a pivot. And it's not unusual in Silicon Valley, but it happens when the original idea was a flop. Facebook is making a massive pivot in the face of success. And I'm not sure I understand it. And I have a feeling that mom and dad and all the people who use Facebook who are not, Silicon Valley insiders are going to say, what? They may not even know yet. This is really the challenge, frankly, the Facebook has. Maybe they can do this if they can do it in such a way that they don't scare people off, they don't make it so complex that people get nervous. I think they're failing that. I think it's gotten insanely complex. And here's the funny thing. I like it a lot more now. But I'm not I'm not the 750 million people who adopted it in the first place. I want a public-facing site because I'm a public figure. I want to use Facebook to share my story with the world. It's like a blog to me, right? It's a publicity vehicle. It's a way to talk to people. It's like this radio show. But how many people want a radio show, and how many people would like a private phone conversation? Facebook's going from being a private phone call with your buddies to a broadcast, to a radio show. And I don't know if mom and dad really realize this. Now, Facebook has done something that Dave Weiner says is really scaring him. When you go to a website that you have given permission to, in some way, sometimes secretly, share your activities with, it'll show up on Facebook. So, for instance, let's say you've in the past gone to Flickr and you've given Flickr permissions. And, sometimes when you say, you get all those permissions, you say, yeah. You don't read them closely. One of the things Flickr will say is, we want permission to, without alerting you, share your activities on Facebook. Have you had this happen? Where all of a sudden in the ticker it says, Leo just posted a photo on Flickr. Let's talk some more about this. I got a break here. Leo Laporte, the tech guy.
That's just the way it is. Oh, yeah.
I like this. Cover, right?
That's just the way it is.
Leo
Tupac.
It's Tupac?
Yeah, it changes.
It's going to change, isn't it? If it's Tupac. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. 8888, ask Leo's a phone number. But I'm going to get to the phones here in just a second. But I did want to complete this thought on Facebook. I ran out of time. And I just demoed this in the break, just so that people who are watching at home on our live video stream could see what I was talking about. I previously gave permission to an application called Spotify. It's a music application, to whenever I listen to a song, automatically post it to Facebook. So I just quickly demonstrated that when I can see, if you go to my profile, and you can subscribe to me without my permission now, by the way. 4,447 people are subscribing to me. All you have to do is to go to facebook.com/Leo G. Laporte. Leo Laporte was taken. And subscribe, and now you will see when I listen to a song on Spotify. But the point being, I didn't click a button that says share this. I just gave Spotify permission at some point a while ago, and now whatever I listen to shows up on my Facebook and on the ticker of my friends or people subscribing to me. This comes from the deep-rooted philosophy at Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg's deep-rooted philosophy that people are happier when they share everything that they do, when they make connections. Hulu is putting an application on Facebook that when you watch a TV show on Hulu, will share that with your friends automatically. Leo is watching Breaking Bad. And this is great for the TV companies or for the music companies, because then maybe you'll listen, maybe you'll watch. Maybe it'll have a snowball effect, and others will listen and watch because you listened and watched, and their friends and their friends and their friends. So it's great for them. It may be fun for you as long as you know what's happening. And it's kind of cool. I know what my friends are watching on TV or what songs they're listening to, especially the ones with good taste. That's great. And, by the way, I can control it. I can block it. I can say, I don't want to see Leo's music. He has terrible taste. So don't show me that anymore. And Leo can block it if he remembers that he turned it on, but he may not remember. It's interesting because Netflix wanted to do the same thing. Netflix is the DVD by mail and the streaming movie company. And they wanted to make an application that would do the same thing on Netflix. They can't because of federal law. The Video Privacy Act prevents them. This is just really interesting. Prevents any company from automatically sharing what people are watching on video. And there's a reason for that. And it goes back to a court case that you may remember. Or actually, it wasn't a court case. I think it was let me see if I can find the reference here. Oh, I have it here somewhere. I can't find it anymore. I had it right in front of me. Video Privacy Act. It's the Video Privacy Protection Act. That's the actual act. And it was a law that was actually created in the days of VCRs and videotapes to prevent video stores from revealing the list of things that you rented. And it goes back to the nominee for the Supreme Court, Robert Bork. Remember that? Bork was borked. One of the things that was used against him was a list of the movies he'd rented. And Congress decided, probably the Bork supporters decided, well, we need the Video Privacy Protection Act. Prevents any company from sharing information about what you're renting at the video store. Well, it also blocks Netflix from participating in this thing that Hulu, see, TV shows don't count, and Spotify are already doing. Netflix wanted to make an app so that when you watch a movie on Netflix, it shows up on your Facebook page. So guess what they're doing? They've gone to Congress to have the law changed. They've gone to Congress to say, well, That's an old-fashioned law. It doesn't apply. Nowadays, in the world of Facebook, in the Facebook era, everybody should know everything. Everywhere else in the world except the U.S., by the way, Netflix can do this. It's only in the U.S. because of this Video Privacy Protection Act that you can't. What do you think of that? Is it? I think in my opinion, if you actively decide that you want to do this, and I don't care if you see what I'm watching. I like that. I think that's fun. I like to see what my friends are watching. If you want to participate in that, I think you should be able to. But I think it should be made crystal clear to everybody what you're signing up for. And I think maybe you should be reminded every few weeks that, oh, by the way, every movie you watch on Netflix, because I can tell you this is going to cause divorces, lawsuits, murders. This is going to be a privacy nightmare because people are going to sign up for this, either not pay attention to what they're signing up for or forget they signed up for it. And the movies they watch, the music they listen to, the places they check into are all going to be public. And they're going to forget. And more than just public, more than just shared with the people you said, yeah, you're my friends on Facebook. For some people who turn on the subscribe feature, they'll be shared with anybody who wants to see it. Now, here's the issue. Facebook's going to say, well, all of this is opt-in. You don't have to turn this all on. And that's true right now. But it hasn't this changed before in Facebook where you opted into something that was private and suddenly it became public. Haven't I been saying for a long time, anything you post on the internet, you should just assume it's public. Even if you are currently given the promise that, oh, no, it's only being shared with your friends, or, oh, no, it's only because you give permission. Assume, if you're opening up this stream, that it's public. Now, for somebody like me who lives in public, that's fine. I understand that, and I embrace it. I think that's cool. I don't have anything to hide. But I can guarantee you there are many people, probably people listening, maybe even you, who don't want that information, don't like that. I know my family doesn't. My wife would be horrified to know that all her actions were being broadcast. She made me make her a Facebook page because friends were sharing pictures with her she couldn't see unless she had one. Isn't that interesting how Facebook makes sure that, you got to be a member of Facebook if you're going to participate. But she made me make that Facebook page completely private. You can't find her by searching. You can't find it. And she doesn't allow friends. She locked it down. Now, I know what to do, and it takes quite a few clicks to do that. It is not the default. If you go into your Facebook settings, you can see how you can make your Facebook page completely private. But I got to tell you, that's not what Facebook wants, is it? Facebook, with this new timeline, with these new profiles, with this ticker, is taking a company that is, by any measure, the most successful website ever in history and changing everything. Some people are saying, well, they're doing that so they can make money. I don't think so. They're doing just fine, thank you. A private page with those ads that are kind of, targeted at you does just fine, thank you. I don't think they need to do this. I think they're doing it because it's hip, it's trendy, it's with it, it's now, and most of all because Mark Zuckerberg has a deep-rooted belief that life is better when you connect and when you share it. And he wants to make sure that everybody who uses Facebook knows it and does it. So just keep this in mind. I just want, if you're a Facebook user, kids, when you're posting on Facebook, it's public. Don't put anything on there you wouldn't want people to see. Check your settings and really think when you use it. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Joining us right now from his television-infested lair, Mr. Scott Wilkinson. Scott is, of course, our home theater expert, online editor of Home Theater Magazine at hometheater.com, and joins us every week to answer your questions and talk about home theater. Hey, Scott.
Hey, Leo. Nice intro there, all about all the new Facebook stuff.
What do you think?
I can't say I'm a big Facebook user, at least not yet. I am at least slightly a public figure. I mean, I have a website and people come and read my stuff and whatever, but I'm on your show. But I I haven't really gotten much into it yet, and all this stuff kind of makes me a little nervous. I know you live your life online, basically.
I'm pretty public. There's nothing people don't know about me, much to the chagrin
Yeah,
of my
exactly.
family.
And there's nothing that I have to hide particularly, but I'm just a little uncomfortable about it. Maybe it's just a personal thing I need to get over. But
Well, that's what Mark Zuckerberg would say. I'm not sure that's the case. And that's the conversation I want to hear from people. 8888 Ask Leo what you think about these changes. But enough about us. What about you? Let's answer some questions about home theater from our adoring fans.
Indeed, yes. I've got an email from a fellow by the name of Jay, who had actually two questions about plasma TVs. One was he wonders if he's got a Verizon Fios cable box. What's Verizon Fios box, and he with HD, and he says, should I set it to 720p or 1080i for watching sports? Which is a very good question.
So he's trying to compensate for the fact that on an LCD especially, action kind of gets blurry.
Yes, exactly right. The problem is that not everybody broadcasts or captures the video in the same way. Now, ESPN in particular, and ABC and Fox, I believe, broadcast in 720p, which in fact is the better way to do sports, because the P is the important part. What it means is progressive, and it means the entire scene, each frame, is captured essentially all at once. As opposed to I, which stands for interlaced, which means that all the odd lines of the picture are captured, and then all the even lines are captured after that. Well, in fast motion, like sports, people running around, throwing balls around and stuff, the object in motion has moved between the time the odd lines were captured and the time the even lines were captured, which is why it looks blurrier. The problem, though, is that some TV stations capture that way, and others capture in the progressive 720p mode. So I generally prefer to set my cable box or the Fios box or whatever to, if it can, to output whatever the TV station is sending me. So that's the key, because if it's sending you something and you change it in the box and then you send it to a TV that has a different resolution, that's going to change it again. And so the resizing and scaling of things, the more times you do that, the worse the picture gets. It accumulates errors.
So what is that setting called?
It's called native, or
it's dot by dot on my.
Well, no, that dot by dot on the TV means display every pixel of information. Don't expand it slightly. Now, that's a different issue. It's called overscan.
That's another scaling thing, though, right? It
is another scaling thing. That's correct. It is another scaling thing.
So we don't want scaling is what we're trying to avoid.
Well, we're trying to avoid as much of it as we possibly can, yes, because scaling always introduces some measure of artifact.
It's you know, all you have to do is stretch a picture or manipulate it, zoom in, zoom out, and you'll see that it changes the. You want it to be exactly as sent, as best you can. As
best you can. So I would set the TV box to output native, or whatever the TV channel is sending you. Some boxes don't let you do that.
Now, there is an exception here. I hate to say it, but when something is sent to you in standard definition and you're watching it on a high-def screen, you do, in fact, want the TV or the cable box to upscale, right?
Correct. That is correct. You do. There's not, because otherwise you're going to see this tiny little picture.
It's really awful.
It's gonna
Although
look
that's
really
native.
bad.
That's native.
That's right. That's right. But you're not going to see that, because if you have the TV box output native, and if you, for example, tune into a standard def channel and it sends standard def to the TV is going to upscale it.
It will. Okay.
The TV is always going to upscale it. I don't think it's possible for you to not upscale.
They know that they would get a lot of emergency tech support calls. Why is the picture so tiny?
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right.
Because that's how big it is, baby. That's it.
Right.
That's what you. Remember, I Love Lucy. That's how big it is. Sorry. Well,
So the other-
this is it. This is good. This is good. So sports, ideally you'd want progressive, but you just have to take what you're going to get because you have
That's
to get
right.
what the station sends you. And
that's
fortunately,
why
you
ES
don't need to know that. You just need to tell the box, the FiOS box or whatever, native.
Output native, yes. Now, the good news is that ESPN has decided, and rightly so, I think, for ESPN, to capture and broadcast at 720p. Now, 720p means progressive, as I explained, but it also means that the number of pixels are different than the number of pixels on a 1080p TV, which a lot of them are these days. And so the TV is going to do some scaling. But I would rather have just one scaling step rather than more than one.
Okay.
And when you get a 1080i, it's a signal from another channel, say CBS or NBC. The TV, all it has to do, a 1080p TV, all it has to do is de-interlace, that is, combine the odd lines and the even lines together. That can cause its own problems, but most TVs these days have a pretty good processor.
And no cable, no satellite sends 1080p.
No.
Is there 1080p on broadcast?
Nope.
So the only 1080p you're ever going to get is either from a video game or a Blu-ray DVD.
Correct.
Everything else is either 1080i or 720p.
That's correct. And the reason for that is there's a limited bandwidth in broadcast channels and on cable and on satellite. They want to conserve bandwidth as much as possible. Well, in the broadcast world, live over-the-air antenna on your roof or rabbit ears or whatever, that bandwidth has been fixed for 80 years, and they're just staying within that bandwidth.
Right.
In terms of cable and satellite, they could provide you with 1080p, but then they'd be able to provide you with many fewer stations, because they'd need a lot of bandwidth for those 1080p channels, and they want to provide as many stations, as much choice as possible. So they are sticking to 1080i or 720p.
Yeah. Very interesting stuff.
Yeah.
And also endlessly confusing.
Yeah,
as I have demonstrated over the years by getting this wrong every time.
I still have a job, yes.
So don't feel bad.
Yeah, exactly right. The other question that Jay asks is, what happens when you have a 1080p set at, say, 50 inches, and then you look at the 60-inch or the 70-inch version of that same TV? Do you get more pixels, or do the pixels just get bigger? What happens to the picture quality? And the answer is the pixels get bigger. You still have the same number of pixels, 1920 across by 1080 up and down, which translates to a little over 2 million pixels altogether on the screen. And it's true that when you get a larger version of the same number of pixels, those pixels get bigger, and you can see problems in the image more readily. So that's the answer to that question.
Scott Wilkinson, hometheater.com, and watch his podcast, Home Theater Geeks, on TWiT, 1:30 Pacific on Mondays. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Lucy! I'm home. Leo Laporte, the tech guy, brought to you in living black and white, standard definition. Somebody was asking in the chat room, is standard definition, which is the old, traditional form of television, is that interlaced or progressive? Oh, that's interlaced, baby, big time. The whole reason for interlacing was just to reduce the amount of bandwidth used by a television broadcast, because in the early days, even though it's analog, these analog TV sets just didn't have the capability to do anything higher. So there's roughly, it's not exact, but there's in NTSC, which is the standard we're talking about. NTSC is roughly 400 interlaced lines. And what they do is they send out 60 fields a second, 30 fields with the odd-numbered lines, 30 fields with the even-numbered lines. And then they interlace them or put them together to make a single picture. So it's a pretty low, 400 lines of interlace is pretty low resolution. When 400i. When you see 480p, which is what the DVD does, that's why people like a DVD better than standard broadcast. DVD is 480 lines, so it's more lines, and it's progressive. So each frame that is sent to you from a DVD has all the lines of the picture, not just half of them. It has all the lines of the picture. And we go from 480p to 720p. Now we're high def. 480p is not high def. It's the three standards are SD, standard definition. That's I Love Lucy. 400 lines interlaced. Enhanced definition, that's the DVD 480p, and then high definition, which starts at 720p. And of course, nowadays when you buy a high-def TV, you're probably getting a TV that has the capability, it's fast enough to do 1,080 lines of progressive. That's 1,080 lines complete each frame. That's a lot of data. We used to do a podcast some years ago, I guess this was 4 or 5 years ago, called Mac Break. It was a video podcast, and the guy who produced it, Alex Lindsay of the Pixel Corps, I was the host of it, and the guy who produced it, Alex Lindsay, was just a kind of crazy video nut. And he bought a camera from Lucas that had been used for the model shots in Star Wars. Very $100,000 camera that could do 1080p. At the time, this was very rare, very expensive. And we made a podcast at 1080p. Was insane to edit because computers would just choke on the thing, and nobody could watch it. You wouldn't. You just couldn't watch it. It looked terrible because your computer could not do it. Now times have changed. 1080p is really the standard. Ray in Agora Hills, California. You've been very patient, Ray. Finally, I'm getting to the phones 49 minutes into the hour. Thank you for your patience. Leo Laporte, the tech guy.
Can you hear me?
I hear you great. Thanks for calling and thanks for holding on.
I have recently started having a blue screen problem where it shuts me down there. And about the same time, I had viruses, so I don't know if there's anything going on with that. But replaced the hard drive at the suggestion of my guru, and now he's saying maybe it's the motherboard. Is there some way to test this, or what can I do about it?
Your guru is going to end up spending a lot of money for you, isn't he? Generally, what is it? Windows XP?
Yes.
A blue screen of death is a very, very serious crash. You know, things crash all the time. Programs crash. And in XP, a program crashing, in theory, doesn't bring down the operating system. But something more serious can, in fact, bring down the operating system. And when that's crashed, that's when you get the blue screen of death. It means, I can't go on.
Right.
And it's serious. I mean, the only thing you can do, as you know, as everybody knows, is restart the machine. Well, what can cause that kind of crash? Well, two different kinds of things. Either it has to be software can cause a blue screen. You probably experienced this, but it's a special kind of software. It's normally memory is protected in XP so that a crashing application doesn't bring the whole operating system down. This was the big innovation that started with XP. In Windows 95 and 98, you crash the browser, you could easily crash the whole system. In fact, the recommendation was if your browser dies, restart because you're in an unknown state. But XP and later now, if the browser crashes, no problem. You restart it. Everything should be fine. That's true in all modern operating systems. However, there is software that can write to system memory. They call it Ring 0, the lowest level system memory, and that's driver software. So it doesn't have to be a hardware error that causes the blue screen.
All right.
It can be a driver. And most of the time, it is a driver. It's not hardware. It's true that, you know, a flaky hard drive, more likely a motherboard problem, an electrical problem. I've seen people plug in a USB device and cause a blue screen. So it can, in fact, be a hardware error. It could be even a power supply that's flaky. And those things are very difficult to diagnose. But more likely, it's a driver error.
But then there's no way to find that?
Well, there's plenty of ways. It just takes some time. I mean, the first thing to do is to make sure you have the latest version of Windows. You've done all the patching. I presume you do that, right, Ray?
I get updates all the time.
Yeah, and that's important because for security reasons, those patches are very important. But it also sometimes, frequently, if you look at the manifest of what's in a patch, frequently it's bug fixes, and that's what those are. They'll prevent blue screens. But you should also make sure your drivers are up to date. And, you know, the first one you always start with is a video driver. That's the one that's updated most often, is most often the cause for a crash. So
in May, I got a new video card.
You did ya?
So that...
So the first thing I do is go to the site for the manufacturer of that card and see if there's an updated driver.
update the driver. Okay.
And it may be, in fact, that the driver that the manufacturer offers isn't the most reliable. There usually are at least 3 different drivers. There's one by the company that made the card, one by the company that made the chipset, and then there's often one that is validated by Microsoft, Windows Hardware Quality Lab approved.
Okay.
And sometimes that's the most reliable, although it's not the most recent. So try different drivers.
Okay.
Try different drivers. That's the easiest and quickest and cheapest thing to do. You start replacing hardware. The other thing to do is to try running the machine for a little while, maybe half a day, in safe mode. You know what safe mode is, Ray?
I do.
Yeah, so you reboot the machine, you tap F8 while it's starting up, and you get into the startup menu and choose safe mode. What that's doing is not using the main drivers. It's using a simplified set of drivers. It's not going to look very good because you're not using the latest, greatest driver for your video card. But if it runs reliably in safe mode, then you're really verifying that it is, in fact, a driver issue.
Okay.
Now, I'll just quickly touch on the other things. It could be overheating. If it seems to blue screen after you start playing a game or doing something that's really working the thing, and you hear the fans ramp up and then it crashes, that could be it. It could be a power supply. It could be bad memory. There's a lot of things it could be. It could be when you put in that new video card, you knocked something, and it may be a little loose.
That was 2 or 3 months ago. So.
But it does. I have to say, the fact that you put in a new video card and then now all of a sudden you're getting blue screens, that sounds like they may be related.
Okay.
So there's some things to look at. It is not, fix this, Ray. It's a number of possibilities, but I always start with the software because drivers can cause blue screens. Drivers can cause blue screens. Another thing you can do, and this is a good thing to always have in your toolkit. I've mentioned this before. You can go to Ubuntu.com or, a lot of Linux distributions. Linux is a free, open-source operating system based on Unix. And you can get a download that burns a CD or a DVD that you can boot to. And here's why this is useful. If your hard drive is corrupted or there's some bad system software or bad drivers or whatever, it's hard to figure that out. But if you boot up from a CD of Linux and everything runs fine, now admittedly, it's not what you're going to expect. It's not Windows. It's not going to have your apps on it. But if everything runs fine from that boot CD, then it kind of says, hey, there's not a hardware problem here because everything's working fine with Linux. This is much more likely a software problem. And then you could start narrowing it down and start working on it. 8888 Ask Leo, that's the phone number. Thanks, Ray. You're in for some fun. Your friend is right. The general, and I'll say this too a lot, the general kind of assumption is there's a hard drive failure because a hard drive is what usually goes. And hard drive failure can cause a lot of related issues because a hard drive, if it's flaky or if it can't be read easily, sometimes that will result in what looks like a corrupted driver or a corrupted system file and cause a blue screen. So it's not, your friend isn't completely off base saying replace the hard drive, especially since hard drives are cheap. A new hard drive is going to be a lot bigger than the old hard drive, so you're going to get some benefit out of it anyway. But I take it when you put the new hard drive in, you reinstalled Windows and you started from scratch and you're still having problems. That's why I think, the fact that you have a new video card, that seems to be that pointing me in the right direction, pointing you in the right direction. We're going to run out of time here, but I can at least get started with Dana in Griffin, Georgia. Dana, you're next. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Oh, and there's the magic bell. It means, Dana, you got to hold on. I'm so sorry. I'm a terrible man. But we will come back and answer your call when we do the news here. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. You know about Gazelle, though. I don't have to tell you about Gazelle. Everybody knows about Gazelle. So if the time comes that we're going to get a new iPhone 5 or an iPhone 4S and you say, I want a new one. I want to get rid of this old phone and get a new one. Most of the time what I end up doing is I just throw it in a drawer, right? I have so many phones, so many phones in my drawers. I have a big drawer under my bed. I have a platform bed. It's huge. It was full of stuff. And then I found Gazelle. Cash for your old gadgets. GAZELLE.com. You gazelle your used gadgets today. Give me a chat room. Give me a something I'm going to trade in. Something you want to trade in. Let's find out what something's worth here. iPads are going from between $227 and $304. HP touchpad. Let's see. I wonder if they have a touchpad on here. Yeah, do you want the, let's try the Wi-Fi Functional? No, it's no noticeable flaws because it's never been used. How much could this be worth? Let's see. $66. Well, if you got it for $99, that's not bad. So you press the add to box button, and then you just keep on going, right? And you just get a whole bunch of stuff. Throw it in a box. You know, make it a box that you can ship. They will give you a mailing list. A mailing, let's see, no noticeable flaws. And antenna, yes. Continue. Oh, good. $6. Add that to the box. You go on and on. You just add all this junk you got lying around the house. You'll be amazed how fast it adds up. Look, I got $72 already. Then on checkout, they will give you a mailing label, so they pay the shipping. You got an email address you give them. And I also suggest you choose your payment carefully. You can get cash. You can get a check. But if you choose an Amazon gift card, I think they give you 5% additional value. There's a Walmart gift card. You can get PayPal, too, if you want it right away. Then send your stuff in. Now, even if there's personal data on there, don't worry about it. They're specialists when they analyze the condition of your gadget, because they have to verify what you said. We'll wipe all your personal data. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Great for charities, too, because they'll create a page for your charity, and you can have a gadget drive, which is fantastic. And if it's not usable, if they can't get any money out of it at all, they will recycle it appropriately. No export, no landfill, no use of prison labor. EPA certified, ISO certified, and audited. BAN certified, the best recyclers, really good green recyclers. So even if you just want electronics recycling for free, because they pay the shipping, Gazelle's great. Gazelle.com. Let them know you heard it on the Tech Guy podcasts. I don't know how you would do that, but it's nice. It's good for the Tech Guy podcast. Well, a good day to you. Leo Laporte here, the Tech Guy, and it's time to talk about tech. Yes, computers, the internet, cell phones, camcorders, blue screens of death, and Facebook, too. My phone number, 8888-ASK-LEO. My website, where all the stuff I talk about is located. Because James writes this stuff down. James Aruvo, he makes all the links and everything. TechGuyLabs.com. We had our first conference call on the redesign. It is really getting redesigned now, I promise you. And I love it because the new redesign will get you involved. We're going to have a team tech guy that can help answer these questions. So the new website will have the question, my answer, a link to video of my answer so you can watch it or listen to it directly. And then your chance to comment on that, to say, no, Leo, you're wrong, or, hey, I got another thing, or what about this, or all of that. You know, we get that in the chat room, and it's great. The chat room is so valuable to me. But it'll be nice to capture that into the webpage, and it'll be there forever. If you'd like to join us in the chat room, by the way, your privacy guaranteed. It is not a Facebook chat room. Just go to techguylabs.com and click the link to chat. We got the video, the audio, the podcasts, all the show notes. I admit it. It's a junky looking site. It's very primitive. It's been around for a long time, 7 years, 8 years. It is about to get redesigned, but you know what? It's functional. The search works. You can find everything I've said on the past 808 shows there on techguylabs.com, and a link to the phone number in the chat and all that stuff. Now, I felt terrible. Dana, you're so patient. I picked you up, and then I said, hold some more. From Griffin, Georgia. Thank you for hanging on, Dana. Leo Laporte, the tech guy.
Yeah, congratulations on your ham ticket. I've been a ham for around 30 years now or so.
I am so proud to be joining this fraternity. I'm also a little embarrassed because I got the technician, got the general, got a great setup because ICOM donated a whole bunch of equipment to our studio, and I have like the best of everything. And I'm too scared to get online.
My first CWD contact, when the guy came back, I ran out and cut the transmitter.
That's exact. You know, you wouldn't think after 36 years talking on the radio. The difference is the radio never talked back to me.
That's right. Listen, I have a quick comment on Facebook.
Yeah.
I'm a blind person, and the Facebook page is not that screen reader friendly. However, I found a way around it.
Okay.
Go to m.facebook.com.
That's their mobile version for cell phones.
on your computer, and you don't see all that stuff they got on there.
Thank you for saying stuff. Yeah, it's much simpler because, of course, it's designed for smartphones.
Right, and that's the question I have for you today about a smartphone.
Okay.
I want to sync my Google. I have an old Ozone. You're familiar with that phone, the Ozone from Verizon.
Yeah.
And I want to sync my Google contacts. I mean, my contacts in the phone up to Google, but it says you have to have Exchange, according to what I read on the website.
Yeah.
I was wondering if there's any way I could do that. They used to have one with Microsoft you could do that with. You could put a program on your phone, and it would sync. Well, they took that away from Windows 6.5.
Yeah. So Ozone is running Windows software.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're really stuck on this phone.
What?
You're really stuck on this phone. All right, I'm not going to talk you out of it. It works for you, especially if you're blind. If you've got a phone that you really can use, you don't want to change it. I understand that.
Yes, sir.
So here's the deal. Google does have an Exchange server.
Okay.
Which will allow you to sync email, calendar, and contact list via what looks to the phone like Microsoft Exchange.
Okay.
So the phone, I presume it's Windows Mobile 6.5. It supports Exchange.
Right.
You just have to put the right settings in. So what you're going to do is create a new Exchange account. And when it asks for the server, the Exchange server is, well, the credentials are, of course, your Google login and your Google password.
Correct.
And the server is, get ready, m.google.com.
Okay, I don't see Exchange on the phone, though.
Well, there must be a way. I can't remember. It's been so long since I've used Windows Mobile 6.5. But there is a way, of course, to add an Exchange account, right?
Well, I don't see it here. All I see is Office Mobile. I looked in there and I didn't see it.
It's been so long. I am pretty sure that, I know, in fact, that there's a way to do this in Windows Mobile. It's, but I just don't remember. Do you have to use ActiveSync? Oh, I hope that's not the case. Try,
yeah, I see that in here.
Yeah, try ActiveSync, and then it'll say set up an account, and you want to set up a new account. There is a whole Google article on this, too, that I could point you to. I'll tell you what, we'll put the link to that because it's a long link in our show notes at techguylabs.com. I hope that's screen readable for you. We try pretty hard. One of the reasons it's such a simple site is to make it very accessible and very easy.
Oh, it is. Your site is. I go to it all the time.
It's just text. And I know it doesn't look fancy or anything, but that's one of the reasons it is just text, so it's as simple to do as possible. But Google does have...
I listen to your show every Saturday and really enjoy it.
Oh, bless you, Dana.
And tell you about that Facebook thing, because that helped me a lot when somebody told me about that trick. I said, man, I can get on there now.
So what it'll tell you is open the Microsoft Exchange ActiveSync application, and then it'll say set up your device to sync with it. You click that. The server address, and this is great because you just told me about m.facebook.com, is m.google.com. It's their mobile server, m.google.com. You do want to use SSL. Make sure that's checked.
Okay.
You will be asked for a login. You'll use your full Google account email address, dana@gmail.com. You'll use your full Google password in there. You don't need a domain. You can leave that blank.
Okay.
If it says you have to have a domain, just put Google.
Okay.
And then you'll see, or you'll read, or your screen reader will tell you about checkboxes that say contacts, calendar, email, and tasks. It'll sync any of those four or all of those four. Just check the ones you want.
All right, well, I'll try that then. I see that ActiveSync all the time in the phone when I go to Task Manager.
Now you know what it's for.
I was wondering what that thing was for, because now I could sync it with Outlook 2003.
Right. But then you have to sync the phone to your desktop. This does it over the air.
That is so cool. I've been wanting to do that. I couldn't think out how to do it. Well, thanks a whole bunch. I'll give it a shot, Leo.
Anytime, Dana. Thank you for listening. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you, sir.
And thanks to the chat room that gave me the link to that Google article. We will put that link in the show notes if you have a Windows mobile phone. It works. One of the reasons I knew you could do this is because that's how the iPhone works. If you want to sync calendars, contacts, and tasks, as well as email with the iPhone, you use Exchange. You don't use the Google Mail account. You use the Exchange account. There is some extra stuff you have to do on the Google side to sync more than one calendar, but you can do that as well. You just have to go to m.google.com/sync on your phone and Tell it, sync all the calendars. And thanks to the chat room. They are fantastic. In fact, there's another link in there that it comes from Microsoft. It says the same thing. Got a black magic router, and we're using Leo Laporte, the tech guy. That's an inside joke from Kyle Benham, who runs our board and chooses the music. You know, Kyle, I'm promoting you. There's no money involved. You are now the tech guy's musical director. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Leo.
Our musical director, Kyle Benham. Gina Salvati on phones. Kyle, of course, doing everything else as well. 8888 Ask Leo. That's the phone number. We're talking about tech, and I'm going to get back to the phones right now because I owe you. Leslie's in Barron Springs, Michigan. Hi, Leslie.
Hello, Leo.
Good to talk to you.
Good to talk to you, too. Thank you so much for taking my call.
My great pleasure. What can I do for you today?
All right. This is something that I've been struggling with to figure out for the last few months, but I started a website a little over a year ago where I teach biology.
Oh, wait a minute. Let me just say, thank you. That's great.
Well, thank you.
I love that. It reminds me of Khan Academy. You know, I'm sure you know about that, which is a great site where you can learn anything.
Exactly, and it's very similar to that. But
okay, now you got to tell me. We got to give you the plug. What's the name of the site?
It's Interactive Biology. If you search for it in Google, it'll come up, or you type interactive-biology.com.
This is such a, this is what the promise of the web is, if you ask me, is people like you who just are giving. Now, do you charge for this, or?
I do not.
I can't believe it. Now, you're such a nice guy, Leslie. Why do you do that?
I'll tell you exactly why I do it. When I first started it, my goal was to put a lot of videos out there. I have about 100 videos on there now.
Cool.
And then eventually my goal was to pull it behind doors and start charging for it. But then since January, I've gotten like over 500 emails and messages from people in third world countries and all over the place telling me how much it's helping them. And when I saw that, I thought to myself, no, I can't pull this behind closed doors and charge for it. I need to leave it out there for free.
We got to make you some money, though. How are we going to make you? I could tell you put a ton of work into these videos.
Well, and that's exactly what I wanted to talk to you about, because I set it up and I put a lot into it, but now I'm trying to grow it and expand it, and there's a lot of traffic. So
yeah, it's starting to cost you money.
It is definitely costing me money. I've had to hire help and so on. So I'm trying to figure out how do. Oh wow, okay. I'm trying to figure out.
Are you getting a little traffic on your server? I think we just killed your site. I'm so sorry. Probably just 1 million people just went to your site. I totally apologize.
Oh, no, that's totally fine. I'll get it.
You'll get it back. You know, just so people understand, this happens all the time because when you design a site, when you buy bandwidth for a site, you don't buy bandwidth for the peaks. You buy bandwidth, because if you bought enough bandwidth for 100,000 people all the time, it'd be prohibitively expensive. So it's almost any site you can bring down just by hitting it with a few thousand people, because you just don't design it for that. You don't buy that kind of bandwidth. So it'll come back. It'll come back.
I have a pretty good virtual private server, so I'm surprised it went on that easy.
Well, you understand that there's 1 million people listening, and even if only 1% just went to your site, we're going to crash it.
I see. Okay. Well, good to know.
Yeah. But anyway, I do want to, first of all, you've done this beautifully. I mean, it is a gorgeous site. I love your interactivity that you've built into it. You've got YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. You've got chat. Brilliant. Yeah. You're really encouraging social sharing of this with a tweet and a like button. I guess that's Wibia that's providing that toolbar at the bottom. I think that's great.
Yeah.
That's a really, really good idea.
Well, thank you. But this is my main issue, my main question, because I've been hearing you, only you basically, talk a lot about Creative Commons, and I've been trying to figure out whether I should go in that direction, but still I need to make sure that it's something that I can sustain, that can make some...
Exactly. So here's the issue. The way radio works, the way I've worked my whole life, is with something called free media. that's advertising supported. So there's only a few ways that you can make great content like this and sustain it, unless you are a independently wealthy millionaire who just wants to do it out of the goodness of your heart. Or you can find, and this isn't a bad idea, you can find somebody like, I don't know, the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation, which does a lot of support for scientific education.
Okay.
If you could go to the Sloan Foundation and said, hey, give me $100,000 a year and you'll be paying for this site. And frankly, this is exactly, I think, the kind of thing they should be funding. So that's another way to do it. Go to somebody with deep pockets and say, fund it. But other than that, you got 3 ways to make a site work. You could put up a paywall, which you were thinking of doing, and I think wisely
I can't do that.
I agree. You decided not to do that, and I think that's wise. And one of the problems with the paywall, one of the reasons I don't use a paywall is not only does it lock out people who can't afford it, you have to become an enforcer.
Yeah.
A paywall only works if you want to police it. Who wants to do that?
Yeah.
You don't want to put yourself in the position of spending half your time looking for people stealing your content or rebroadcasting it. And it's the only way you can make a paywall work. So there are 3 ways, as I said. Paywall's one. Ad-supported free media is another. Donations is a third. You can ask, and I do the latter 2 on our TWiT podcast site. We both ask for donations. And I think a site like yours, you probably get a lot of grateful students and their parents, even more importantly, who would donate money to this site. So that's one possibility. You absolutely are missing the boat by not saying, do you like this site? Help us keep it online. And
I do that in some places. I mean, I have the videos there via YouTube, but I also have a download page if you
I would go to it, but I don't think I don't know if it's going to work yet.
I know. Basically, you opt in, you get to download all the videos.
We crashed it.
That was a bunch of resources, and on that, I asked people to donate if they want. And I've done that, but not much has come in.
Oh, yeah, and this is the other thing I learned is a very small percentage of people. Now, I don't think that my podcasts have the kind of goodwill that yours would. So, you could even say, if you get an A, give me $10. If you get a B, give me $7. If you get a C, give me $3. If you get a D, you don't have to give me anything. You can make it fun. We ended up, we asked people to donate. We still ask people to donate $2 a month. It's not required. There's no necessity to do that, just out of the goodness of their heart. And I would say, we make about between $8,000 and $10,000 a month in donations. That means it's 4,000 or 5,000 people, which is 1/100th of the total donate. And that's I would say that's pretty typical. Public broadcasting claims a 4% donor rate, but of course they're begging all the time. So I would say that's the max you could ever expect is a 4% donor rate. So you can do the math.
Okay.
So that really means that you're either going to have to take advertising, and I'll tell you what, on a site like this that is going to schools, that could be a problem. Schools sometimes do not will block a site like that or won't let that participate. So I certainly would set up the tip jar.
Okay. I have one more question.
Yeah, hang on, because I really want to support you in this, but we do have to take a break. Okay. Really, really cool. We'll talk some more about it in just a bit. Leo Laporte, the tech guy.
I do is win, no matter what. Got money on my mind, I can never get enough. And every time I step up in the building, everybody hands go up. And they stay there.
All right, Leo, you got a DSL Extreme billboard here. This is a song Zuckerberg came out to.
Really?
Yeah. And both him and Adam Sandler.
Ludacris going in on the verse because I never been
Ludacris. I'll tell you why we played that song. Kyle explained it to me in a second. Hands Go Up. That was the song that, I didn't know this, but Kyle Benham tells me that was the song that Mark Zuckerberg came out to at his F8 keynote, which was on Thursday, and that's where Facebook announced all those new changes. It was kind of fun. They had Andy Samberg come out first. You remember Andy had played Mark Zuckerberg on Saturday Night Live. Does a credible Mark Zuckerberg, not as good as Jesse Eisenberg, but credible Mark Zuckerberg. And so he came out and said, "Yeah, I'm Mark Zuckerberg," or the Zuck Beast or whatever, Zuck Man. And it was pretty funny, I have to say. What I liked about it was a little bit self-deprecating. He kind of mocked Facebook and mocked himself. And I think that that's probably a good idea when you're building a company that terrifies people. It's good to be a little bit self-deprecating. 8888 Ask Leo, that's the number. Kyle's, our musical director, Kyle Benham's playlist will appear on the show notes, techguylabs.com. At the end of the show, he also posts it on Google Plus as a Spotify playlist, which means you could just click that link, and listen to every song in its entirety, which is awesome. 8888 Ask Leo. We were talking to Leslie. I just think this is so cool what Leslie's doing. Of course, we immediately brought down his website.
I just got it upgraded. So it's
well, don't spend a lot of money on that. Now I'm going to feel bad.
Well, no, just temporarily. They just added some more resources.
Some bandwidth? So tell us the link again. Let's see if we can bring it back down.
Biology.com.
So the easiest way to do it, and this is the way I did it, is search for interactive biology on Google. Then you don't have to do any typing. And the very first result on Google says Interactive Biology by Leslie Samuel, Making Biology Fun. And what a great idea. You put together a bunch of videos, and we broke it again. And I'm sorry, Leslie.
Oh, my word.
I'm so sorry.
It'll be back up.
Make a note, folks. Is it what age group is it aimed at? High school or college?
Well, I have an entire year biology class on there for high school, but then the videos that I make on a regular basis are mostly for college, university, even medical school. I get doctors using it and pharmacists, and I mean it's helping people at all the different levels, pretty much.
I cannot thank you. Are you a biology teacher? What's your background?
Well, it's actually quite interesting. I was teaching high school biology, and because of this website, I got a job now. I'm an assistant professor at a university teaching in a physical therapy program.
Well, you got some benefit then. That's good.
Oh, most definitely.
So this is something very important to point out. I think it's in the Bible. Cast your bread upon the water, and it will come back to you 1,000-fold. I think that people sometimes hold on so tight to their creations. It's mine, I made it, and I want to make money for it. And I tell photographers, I tell writers, I tell bloggers, I tell video artists, I tell podcasters, sometimes it's good for the soul, and you might even get a benefit by just giving it away.
Exactly. So my question, my second question about the Creative Commons, let's say I were to do that, and I put it as Creative Commons, but later on the line I see that, okay, maybe this isn't working as well as I thought, and I would like...
You can change the license at any time.
Oh, you can?
Yeah.
Okay.
So let me explain what this is for people who are saying, what is he talking about? There is a copyright law in the U.S. that describes how ownership of intellectual property, your creations, writing, music, video, are protected, and it's automatic. It is an automatic license. Merely by creating something, you assert copyright to it. Now, there's things you can do in addition. You can file with the government and say, I own this copyright. You can, if you wish, and you don't have to file to do this, you can also put, and now I'm not a lawyer, but this is my understanding of it, you can also put a copyright logo on your stuff, copyright 2011, Leslie Samuel, all rights reserved, and merely putting that notice on there sends a notice that this is my stuff. You may not use it without my permission. You may not republish it. You may not copy it. You may not use it in a school. You may not use it in any way without my permission. That's the default. There really isn't any, or wasn't for a long time, any other choice. You could either do that or say, I don't assert any rights, and you'd have to do this actively because the copyright is automatic. And this is in the U.S. It's different around the world. But in the U.S., you could also say, nope, I put it in the public domain. I assert no rights. But at that point, you have no control, and anybody can do anything, including putting it on DVD and charging for it. So Larry Lessig, who is a brilliant, was at Harvard, Stanford, law professor, a great thinker, a deep thinker, written a number of books. Larry said there's got to be, we need a license somewhere in between asserting all rights and no rights. Some legal license that somebody could assert saying, look, here's what I want you to do with my stuff. And he created something called Creative Commons. If you Google Creative Commons, you can go to their website and find out more. The Creative Commons licenses, there are a variety of them. There isn't just one. that cover, common alternative uses. CreativeCommons.org is the website. And you can actually go there and click a button that says choose a license and go through the steps and create a license. Your choices include, will you allow commercial use of your work? Yes or no. Will you allow modifications of your work? Yes, no, or this very interesting middle ground where, yes, you can modify it, but you have to share your modification as I have shared my original work. And then you can say, what is the jurisdiction of your license? And you could say international, U.S., whatever countries. I would just choose international. There's additional fields that you can fill out, but those two questions are the fundamental questions. Now, for instance, except for this radio show, which is owned by the Premier Radio Networks, and they have the copyright for this and assert all rights to it, every other podcast I do, all the website blogs I do, all the videos I make, I license Creative Commons, non-commercial. That means you can't take it and sell it without my permission. And I say attribution, which means you have to give me credit if you reuse it, and share alike, which means, yes, you can mess with it. You can do a mashup. You can take parts of it and put it, but you have to do whatever you create that way, you have to share the same way that I've shared this. You have to pay it forward, pass it along. So that's the license I use. What it's saying is I still assert rights to this. You can't do anything you want. And I think you would want to do this. You can revoke it. You can just, change the license agreement on there. But remember that once you've said it's Creative Commons, people in their minds might think so. And, it may take a while for people to realize, hey, he's no longer Creative Commons. So I would think hard about this before you do it.
And I don't know that I would want to remove it from Creative Commons. I want people to be able to share it as much as possible. If it's not helping people, then it doesn't make any sense putting it out there. And you use it as much as you can to learn biology better and so on.
Furthermore, once you put something on the web, it's kind of that way by default, right? It kind of, I mean, you're putting it out there, and even if you assert a copyright, you've seen how hard it is for copyright holders to preserve their copyright.
Yeah.
They have to police it. They have to pull down stuff off YouTube, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This is, in fact, a big battle going on. I think what you're doing is fundamentally altruistic. I think you deserve to at least cover your costs, if not make money. You should make money on this. So you need to find a way to do that. I think donations are the best route. I would also, though, go to the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation and say, look, I'm doing education in sciences. This is what your foundation was set up to fund. Fund me. You probably know a little bit about grant writing. If you work in the sciences, you kind of have to learn. I would look for grants, but I think what you're doing is so fantastic. Just keep it up, Leslie. I think you're doing a great thing.
All right, thanks a lot.
Thanks for the call. Interactive-biology.com. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. I don't know about you, but it's a little spooky in here. Oh, it's Shark Week on the Tech Guy. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. We've had that inflatable RC swimmer air shark all week long in the studios, and we've had so much fun with that. Nobody's popped it yet, but I think it's only a matter of time where some angry show host takes a knife to it. 8888 Ask Leo, that's the phone number. I'm so moved and impressed by what Leslie Samuel was doing with his interactive biology site. I think that's just so great. The other site that I mentioned is Khan Academy. And to me, this is, if you can take a look at Khan Academy at KHAN academy.org. Same idea, although Khan Academy has 2,400 educational videos. Started off in math, and now it's everything. Algebra, civics, banking, biology, brain teasers, calculus. Pretty impressive. These are all free, available to anybody. It's just, to me, this is why the internet is so exciting, why technology is so exciting. It's one thing, here in the United States, we get free education, and a lot of people go on to not only high school but college. It's kind of expected. It's done. The state sponsors a lot of great education. But there are a lot of places in the world where getting an education is a very difficult thing to do. And the fact that the Internet is global, is everywhere, and that this kind of educational material is available to anybody. iTunes U is another great example. It's very exciting. You really, as long as you have access to the Internet, which I admit is not global, not universal, and it is costly, but as long as you have access to the Internet, you can get a college education without going to college. Absolutely. Anybody now who has access to the Internet has access to the world's knowledge. And that was the promise of the Internet, and I think that promise has been delivered. And it's transformational. I can only imagine how the world will change because of it. It's fantastic. And it's people like you, Leslie, who are doing that. Thank you. Don in Atascadero, California. You're next. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Hi, Don.
Hey, Leo, that's kind of a hard act to follow.
Isn't that exciting? Well, it's all the same. What we're doing is we're helping people understand technology so they can take it and do it and something with it that makes a difference. It's all the same.
By the way, I've been to the Khan Academy, and I give it a +1. Definitely agree.
Isn't it amazing? Yeah.
Okay, so I don't really expect you to answer this, but I'm doing a little crowdsourcing here. And what happened is kind of out of the blue, without any major changes or even minor changes in my XP system, when I plug in any device, initially I thought it was just USB, but it's any device, and the new hardware wizard fires up, well, it can never install the device. So something as simple as a PS2 keyboard is not recognized. So I'm wondering if it could be related to a Windows update, perhaps, or if I could do that little trick you have where you put the Windows disk in and you do the file replacer thing. I was wondering if either of those would be a way to go.
It definitely sounds like there's a flaw in the software that the device manager software.
Right.
And that no matter what, you're unable to install a device driver, period.
There was one fluke where it decided to recognize some USB device I had, but everything else, they're almost all USB.
Okay. Now that's one question. If it were all USB, then you would say, well, there's a USB issue. Right. But you've tried to install some non-USB devices ever?
PS2.
You mentioned that, the PS2, and that won't work.
Yeah, well, it works, but it says it doesn't recognize it. Occasionally, something will work, but it's still, every time I get the same result where it says, "Can I check the internet?" And I say yes this one time, put in the best software, and it goes through and it says, "Can't install this device. Sorry."
What version of Windows?
XP Service Pack 3. Now, just this little proviso, it's kind of a little tweaked because I used Nlight to shrink it down because I run it on a small, very fast partition. It had been working flawlessly.
Okay.
And with no, changes other than Windows updates, at least that I can recollect, all of a sudden I'm getting this error over and over and over.
Can you install manually? Have you tried that, installing, downloading, or using from the disk the device driver, running it first?
No, I have not done that.
Might be worth seeing if, it might merely be that the automated process doesn't work, but that in fact you can install device drivers and have them be recognized.
Well, if that's the case, typically when you get a thumb drive, for instance, you don't really get software with it.
Right. USB should just work because these drivers are already installed on Windows.
Right, they're all mass storage devices.
Mass storage devices, right. There's also HID, human interface devices for keyboards and mice. Those things Windows comes with, and so they're already installed. But it could be that this is what I'm trying to figure out is it a hardware issue or a software issue? I'm gonna maybe assume that the PS2 is a fluke and that there might be, in fact, a physical issue.
Well, I've used your trick. I'm a big Linux
smart man.
guy, and
okay.
Fired up. The USB seemed to work without any problem.
Well, that's very interesting. Were you able to recognize new devices and install them?
Yeah, there's one thumb drive I have that when I tried it in XP, it said, I don't know, and then I fired up the Linux distro and it mounted.
Good news. So it's not hardware. It's definitely Windows is screwed up.
Yes.
And it's interesting that you've done this kind of special version of XP where you stripped stuff out. I think that's telling.
I'm quirky, Leo. It's always got to be something a little off.
You know, Windows 7 is so much more lightweight than Windows XP that it actually runs pretty well, even on netbooks and low-powered devices. You might take a look at moving to Windows 7 on. I presume the reason you did this is it's like a netbook or something simple?
Well, no, you might remember some years ago that, I can't remember the company, but they came out with the iRAM drive, and you could put in 4 gigabytes of memory into a PCI card, and then it would be like a hard drive.
Ah, so you needed a very small...
It's real fast. I don't know. It's just a silly thing. It doesn't really...
I think it's related to that somehow, but it's hard for me to figure. Now, there is a system file checker. You know about SFC?
You've gone over it a couple times. I was hoping you could refresh my memory.
Yeah, that's the, you know, I mean, look, you have a very unusual install of Windows, so it's not surprising something might be wrong with it, but maybe we can get it working with System File Checker. It's a command line, SFC, space, / scan now, one word.
Okay.
And what happens, this is a program that you've got, runs on Windows. It will scan through system files only, see if they are intact or missing. And now, in order for this to work, you'll have to have your Windows disk. So it'll go through all of those, and if something's screwed up, it will replace it.
Okay.
So that sometimes helps on this kind of thing. It's certainly a good thing to know about.
Sure. I was just thinking that maybe because you have such a vast audience in the
Well, I'm watching the chat room because you're right. I have no idea.
Well, I thought maybe it had been associated with a recent update, you know, and
I think it's the stripped down version of Windows that you're running. I think Enlight might have removed something you needed.
Except it's worked fine for months. That's the part that's it's a new.
All of a sudden, it stopped working. Well, it might be corrupted. It could be an update, or could merely be, especially on a device like you're talking about, it could be a corrupted driver. You know, USB root driver could be corrupted, something like that.
Yes, and so the SFC might replace those then?
If it finds it, the other thing you can do is go into Device Manager and remove all USB entries, all of them.
Well, I tried that, but then, of course, I couldn't. Sadly, this motherboard, it has the PS2 for a keyboard, but not for a mouse.
Oh, so you... Well, you can do it and reboot, and in theory, Windows... Oh, but would it not reboot?
Well, I couldn't get all of them removed.
It's supposed to... Oh, you couldn't remove them because as soon as you do it, you no longer had access to it.
Yeah, there's the overall category, but when you right-click that, it doesn't have the uninstall option. You have. I
think you could do it all with the keyboard. In fact, I know you can.
Okay, well, I maybe that was right.
And, you know, what happens in theory with this is that Windows reboots and then says, wait a minute, you've got USB stuff and installs it and then everything works. But it's not really replacing the driver. So the other thing is that you might want to go through your drivers and replace them. Lou in the chat room who works at Microsoft says, remove those in safe mode. Of course, you continue to use your PS2 keyboard to remove them, then reboot.
So just remove every USB entry and let it reboot.
Yeah, including the root hub.
Right.
Which is what I suspect is wrong. And by the way, that PS2 may in fact be using USB.
Oh, okay.
We'll see. And if it screws it up, sorry.
Hey, can I give a little love for Windows Mobile here, by the way?
I hate Windows Mobile. You're never going to get me to say anything nice about it.
Favorite whipping boy. Well, I talked to you about a year and a half ago about before I bought my phone, and you mentioned that it didn't have a decent browser, and that's very true. It didn't come with a decent browser, but
they're better now.
Called UC Web. So if your 5 users who use it might like to try checking out UC Web browser.
Thank you.
Oh, talk to you later.
Take care, Don. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Well, hey, how are you? Leo Laporte, the tech guy here. And it's time to talk about computers and the internet and cell phones and camcorders and MP3 players and home theater and all that jazz. All the electronic goodies that are changing our lives. If you want to call in and say hello, do, please. Love to hear from you. 8888 Ask Leo is the number. We've been talking about Facebook making major changes, which I think, change. People don't like change in general. And that's some of the reaction to this, but I think it's really more than that because Facebook's change really is it's a pivot. It's what they call in the tech industry a pivot. You know, in dancing, when somebody puts down their toe and spins, that's exactly what a pivot is. In the tech industry, it usually happens because you've failed in your initial plan. You created a company to do one thing, and it didn't work, so you pivot. A classic example is Ev Williams, who, after his success with Blogger, he sold it to Google for millions of dollars, started a company called Odeo. And at the time, it made sense. It was a company to support podcasters. Well, I guess podcasting never really became a financially viable medium. And Odeo really didn't become much of a company. Ev did something very interesting. He returned all the money to the investors, gave it all back, and asked his staff, he said, what else can we do? One of his engineers, Jack Dorsey, said, hey, I've had this idea I've been working on. It's like text messaging, except you could do it from your phone, but you also use the web, and people can follow you, and you could text message them. And Ev said, well, that's interesting. Let's work on that. We need a name, though. Well, our logo, the Odeo logo, was a little bird. What sound do birds make when they're chattering back and forth? Oh, we could say tweets. We'll call it Twitter. It was kind of a nice pivot. It worked out very well. There have been a lot of other pivots in the tech industry that haven't worked out so well. But I can't think of a single case where a company that's wildly successful has decided to pivot, to change its business model. And I don't think there's been a company as wildly successful ever as Facebook. Still not public. They've had private investment, but the founder, Mark Zuckerberg, still keeps the lion's share of the company. He's worth billions. The company's worth billions. They're making a ton of money. They have 750 million users. Mark announced at his developer conference, the F8 conference on Thursday, that for the first time ever, Facebook had 500 million people in one day visit it. That's a record. 500 million users logged onto Facebook in 24 hours. And by the way, that's not 200 million people logging on 2.5 times. That's 500 million unique users, 500 million unique users, 1/12 of the world's population using Facebook in one day, and it's not good enough. This is what blows my mind. It blows my mind. There has never been a more successful company on the web. One of the most successful companies of all time, and they're pivoting. They started out, as you probably know, as a company where you would go and create an account and put your private personal information there, visible only to people you allowed to see it, friends and family. It's great. It was a place where, friends and family would gather online to share pictures of babies and wedding announcements and personal information, including your relationship status, your age, your location. I mean, that was cool. Now Facebook wants to turn it all on its head. They want you to use Facebook and publicly tell everybody what you're up to, just like Twitter. Isn't that interesting? Twitter, which is not nearly as successful as Facebook, not a fraction of as successful as Facebook. They haven't even made any money yet. They want to be like Twitter? Really, Mark? Does that make any sense? There's two possibilities. One, Mark is a visionary unlike any we've ever seen before, a man who so deeply understands what's going to happen 5 years into the future that he's positioning Facebook to be even more successful as people finally come around to his vision of the universe as an utterly connected public place. He says people are happier when they're connected. They want to be public. They want to tell the world what they're doing. They want that. And we're going to make sure they can. So either he's this great visionary or he's a complete idiot who, for reasons of ego alone, because he wants street cred in Silicon Valley, has decided to take some hugely successful site that's just a little too pedestrian for the Silicon Valley hipsters and make it into this hipster Twitter-like thing. I'll be honest, I don't know which. It's definitely one or the other. I mean, he's made his pile. He can't lose. I mean, I guess that's the good news. I mean, he can't lose. But I have to say, for all, as wealthy as he is, he still wears shower flip-flops and hoodies, lives in a very modest middle-class home. He is not, I think, swayed by money. I don't think it's about money. I don't think he's trying to become the richest guy on the planet. He really, I believe he thinks he's doing something very important. But it's up to us as his users to tell him whether that's the case. And I think the jury's still out. I know a lot of people are very upset by the changes, and there are going to be more. They're going to be more. Bill in San Diego, Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Hi, Bill.
Hi, Mr. Laporte. Thank you for taking my call.
You're welcome. What can I do for you? I won't call you Mr. Bill. Oh, no!
Well, it's either... you're my last resort here.
Oh, help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi.
About 2 months ago, I noticed our iTunes wasn't working, or I was informed by my kids that it wasn't working.
Informed in gentle, quiet voices? No. Informed by screams of dismay. Daddy, the iTunes is broken.
And then, so I get to working on it, and apparently it's the QuickTime that has stopped working. And
You're on Windows, aren't you?
I am on this.
Yeah, this is, it drives me crazy. Most iPod owners, most iTunes users are not on Apple. They're on Windows. And iTunes is perhaps one of the worst Windows programs ever written. I guess Apple just doesn't have the expertise. I don't know. But iTunes on Windows is horrible, and it's almost always QuickTime.
Yeah. Okay. And to make it short, what I do, I can't uninstall Windows. It keeps telling me that the feature you're trying to use is on a network resource that's unavailable.
So you're trying to reasonably uninstall QuickTime.
Pardon me?
You're trying to uninstall QuickTime and reinstall it.
Correct.
So start by uninstalling iTunes.
Okay. I did that.
And it still won't uninstall QuickTime.
No, it won't. I've uninstalled iTunes and QuickTime, and then every time I try to install iTunes or install QuickTime, it gives me that message. Or when I try to uninstall QuickTime, it keeps giving me that message over and over and over.
I'm looking at an Apple support note.
Uh-huh.
I love this. In some rare instances, it may be necessary to remove all traces of iTunes, QuickTime, and related software before reinstalling. So you've looked at this one, and it does have some steps, one by one.
Mm-hmm.
You might have seen an alert that says can't uninstall because iPod service is being used.
No, I haven't seen that.
Okay. So what you need to do is go into Task Manager, Control-Alt-Delete, and look at the tasks running, and try to kill tasks that might be using QuickTime. If QuickTime told you what's running, then that might give you a hint as to what to kill in the Task Manager.
Okay.
If not, just kill everything.
All right.
You can't do yourself any harm by doing that.
Okay, I will give that a shot. Everything pointed me towards the old Windows installer cleanup utility, but it's not on their site anymore.
Yeah. I'll give you another one that might work. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Just because it's good.
Just because it's good, yes.
Leo.
Your Obi-Wan reference.
Oh, help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope. Leo Laporte, the tech guy, helping you across the universe with your tech problems. Diana in San Bernardino, California, USA, planet Earth, solar system, galaxy, Milky Way. Hello, Diana.
Oh, sometimes I think I live on the moon. The way everything is going these days.
I know. We've lived in an amazing era.
Maybe.
Yeah. Well, it's confusing, and it's changing rapidly. But boy, if you like science fiction, you'd love this century.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
It's amazing. You're right. I love your show too.
Thank you.
I go to visit my granddaughter in L.A. Almost every weekend to babysit.
Oh, aren't you lucky?
Oh, she's 2 years old.
Oh, I'm so jealous.
And there's 2/3 of one more on the way.
Oh, good. Congratulations. That's great.
Anyway, I would love the internet if we could get it more than 10% of the time or anything like that. We have so much trouble with the internet. I'm just about ready to quit. We have DSL Extreme, and we can't get a signal. Sometimes we can get it for a Wi-Fi signal. Sometimes I can get it for my laptop, But for my iPad, almost never. I even
the iPad sometimes has trouble with Wi-Fi. It drops it out, right?
Well, even the AT&T I pay extra for, for the 2 gigs. It usually has maybe one.
So you have an iPad with 3G, and neither the 3G nor the Wi-Fi work.
Correct. They work every once in a while.
That's frustrating.
Our Wi-Fi with our computers and everything is it's horrible.
So understand that those are completely unrelated, unless your iPad is either broken or you're keeping it in a metal case.
No, I have it in a leather case.
Yeah. Have you ever reset the iPad?
I did. I did once.
Okay. You might try that. The iPad is a computer, and, normally it doesn't get turned off, but every once in a while it's not a bad idea to just press and hold the start button on the iPad.
Yeah,
that button in the upper top, and it'll say slide to turn off, and just turn the whole thing off. That's like a reboot. And I know the iPad's doesn't need to be rebooted, except it does. So once in a while, that's not a bad thing to do. It may be that there's a lot of radio interference in your house. That's what I'm starting to think.
I don't know. If we connect the internet to our laptop with just a modem, we have no problem.
So you mean if you connect directly, you take the DSL Extreme modem and you plug it right into the computer, everything's fine?
Yes.
So it's the Wi-Fi that's the problem.
Right.
Whose Wi-Fi router are you using?
DSL Extreme.
Okay. So you're using the one that came with the modem.
Correct. It's a D-Link.
Yeah, it may be that's a flaky router. In fact, I think that's probably what it is.
You think so?
Yeah. Now, good luck getting help from DSL Extreme on that.
No, we haven't had any help, but we've tried and tried.
Send me an email. I don't know what to say. They offshored their tech support, and it's terrible. It's terrible.
We've called them over and over and over.
I know. I love this company, and we've been together for 7 years. They're really, I believe firmly that an independent internet service provider is a good way to go. The phone company, is awful, and these guys will go to bat for you against the phone company. But they made a huge mistake, and I'm just waiting for them to finally realize it. They offshored their tech support, and that means things like this, good luck.
Yeah. Well, I think we use AT&T lines.
Yeah, well, understand DSL Extremes has to, as all independent DSL providers have to do, they sit on the lines provided by the incumbent phone company. So in this case, AT&T is your phone company. But it isn't the lines that's the problem. It's merely that Wi-Fi router.
Yeah.
So that's all. And it may be that it needs an update, a firmware update. Do you have a geek in the house?
No.
That's the problem. What we need to do is either replace that router, which you can do. You don't have to use their Wi-Fi router. You can get your own. Just as you connected the computer directly to the DSL modem, you connect that Wi-Fi router to the DSL modem and use it. I bet it'll work better. The other thing you might try is positioning it, because it sounds like, given that you're having trouble with your 3G too, there might be some radio interference in the house, microwaves or cordless phones, something like that. So I would move that router around.
We did that. We moved it to another room.
Good, okay, and that didn't help.
Nah.
You need to be fairly close to it. I know they say 150 feet, but truth is, especially if you've got metal mesh in your walls, as many older homes do, that may be part of the problem.
I'm about 10 feet away from
You're right next. Can you see it? I mean, you can see the router, and it's still terrible.
Yes. So we're just really frustrated, because I love the internet, but...
Oh yeah, well no, you shouldn't. This should not be a problem. We're all wireless here in the studio. There's a lot of radio frequency floating around. We had our IT guy come in, and he did a lot of messing with it, and he was able to get it to work just fine. And that's kind of what needs to happen. The way he did it was he changed channels on the router. Now you can do this. The Wi-Fi router has a choice of channels from 1 to 11.
That's true. Yeah.
And if you go in there and try a different channel, you'll do it from your browser.
Okay.
I know we're getting kind of geeky. That's why I asked if you had a resident geek, but I think you can do this.
Yeah.
Yeah, you go into the router, and it's probably set for channel 1.
Yeah, I don't know what channel it's set for.
I would try the other end of the spectrum and then start going down from there. So if it's set for 1, set it to 11. If that doesn't work, go to 10, 9, 8. Usually what happens is you'll use up a chunk of spectrum in the 1 area, the 11 area, and the 6 area. So if it's at 6, go to 1. Go 5 places away.
Okay.
And see if that helps.
Is there a button on the router, or do I have to do it?
You have to do it in the browser. I don't know if you've ever done this, but you'll go to 192 in your browser. 192. It's in the manual. The address varies from different companies. D-Link, I think, is 192.168.0.1. I think that's D-Link.
192.168.
That's 0.1. You do that in the browser. You might get a password. If you do, it's admin, ADMIN, ADMIN. I think it's capitalized in the first one.
Okay.
This is what if you could get a tech support person at DSL Extreme, this is what they would tell you, and they'd walk you through it.
They haven't told us that one.
Yeah, of course not.
They haven't told us anything. We were really frustrated with it.
I don't blame you. And then the other thing that you might want to do if you're once you get into that router settings is check to see if there's newer firmware. Sometimes they can update the firmware.
All right. Router settings. Okay. I'll try those. If we do have to replace the router, is there a certain one that's better than others?
I actually think D-Links are pretty good. It just may be that you've got a faulty one.
Yeah. It's kind of old.
Yeah, it's old, and I think that might be really what's going on.
Okay. All right. So we'll try the channels, and then if that doesn't
try updating the firmware too, because sometimes that helps a lot.
I've looked at Amazon. They also have these boosters.
No, and it's not a booster. If you're 10 feet away and you're having the problems, it's not the booster.
Oh yeah.
You're close. You're close. A booster is so you can get farther away. I wish I could just come over and fix it for you, Diana. I really do. It's very frustrating. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Bob the Builder. I love it. Oh, well, that's kind of what we all are, aren't we? Leo Laporte, the tech guy. 8888 Ask Leo. Don in Santa Monica, California. You're next, Leo Laporte. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Leo. I'm going to preface this before I ask my question. When I'm out with my friends, they always give me little ideas. They look at something and say, oh, I like that. So I buy that and put it away for Christmas or a birthday. And on your show, $7.99, I think you were talking Dickie D. He was showing you those wall clocks, those.
Love those. I did the same thing, Diana. I got one there. I got one in the other studio. They're great, aren't they? From Kickerland.
I bought that one for you because I was going to my class reunion. And so about 10 minutes after I saw you saying, oh, I like that, I went and ordered it for you. And that, I don't know if that's the one that you have on your...
Oh, you're the one who sent me the big clock. Thank you.
And that was my class reunion, so I didn't know if you received it or not. But since being home, I've seen it on your show. I love it. I was going to buy you a brick. I thought,
aren't you sweet? Now, this is not the one you got me. This is the one I got, which is the little one. You got me the big one, which is great.
The big one. Is that the one that's on your...
There's another one. I got two, and it's great. I don't know how you knew, but you got me the one in the middle. So I'd gotten the biggest one and the littlest one, and you got me the one in the middle, which is great. So we have all three. Thank you.
Oh, I didn't know.
Well, thank you. And I just love these because the gear is kind of part of our design, isn't it?
Looks perfect, like with that other gear that's in your main office there. It's
exactly. I don't know if I have a shot of that, and no, I don't. I got to change my camera around so you can see it, but it is fantastic, and I cannot thank you enough for it.
Here's my question. I went on Wikipedia looking at bandwidth. It's more confusing. Is it a finite amount of bandwidth, or how is it created? Is it made? Is there
bandwidth? It's great. It's not like chips. It's not like widgets. It's not really made. How could that's a great boy. You know what, Don? That is one of the questions of the age.
When you think of it, there's so many people using bandwidth. And I was wondering, is there a finite? When you order bandwidth from DSL, they only sell you a certain amount, or you pay more for more.
Wow, you have just given me probably the most difficult question ever, but I'm going to try it. Okay, listen on the air, Don. I'll walk you through it. And thank you for the clock.
Yeah, well, I wanted to get you that.
You are a sweetheart.
Back.
You are a generous sweetheart, and I thank you so much.
Okay.
And the company is called, Kikkerland, and they make these wild gear clocks.
Yeah.
And they're just amazing. They're just amazing.
I'm gonna order one from my house.
They're great. Now they're plastic. They're not. They might look like they're metal. They're great for a TV show, though. I got to tell you.
Right, perfect.
Because we don't care what they're made of. They just look really good. So I thank you for the Kickerland Gear clock. They have a wall clock, a big wheel hour clock, which we got. That's the big one underneath our gear. And then you sent me the. Actually, I have the standing clock. You sent me the wall clock, and I love it. And it's actually in the off. My CEO stole it, and she's put it in her office. She's put it in her office, but that's okay because it looks great.
Okay, so I'll be listening for the next.
Thank you, Don. Yeah, I'll explain what is bandwidth and how it works. Holy cow!
Thank you.
It is not a group of fat musicians. That's another kind of bandwidth. We'll talk about it in a second. Also joining us in just a little bit, we're going to talk with Nice Fish Films. My friend Sean, who is an expert on social media, his take on what the heck's happening at Facebook. What is going on there? He also has some recommendations for how to use the new social media for yourself, for your publicity and so forth. I think that's great. Are you ready to talk a little bit about Facebook and what's going on with them? I want to talk about that with my friend from Nice Fish Films. He's on the Skype right now. Let me see. Wait a minute. I got to find you here. Can you hear me now? Are you there, Sean?
I can hear you. I can hear you loud and clear, Leo. Dana Point says hello.
First of all, you're trying to get rid of plastic bags in Dana Point. I know that because I saw that on Facebook.
Well, you know what? We're going to get into what we're trying to do today, but, this is interesting to watch the journey of Leo. I like Facebook. I don't like Facebook. I love the timeline, and that's because you and I are veterans of Friend Feed, and we watched that real-time ticker, and it came alive for us.
It's
I
really
think
true.
Brett Taylor
It's really true.
Is one of the smartest guys in the world. He was one of the co-founders of Friend Feed. He brought that technology over, and I think Facebook has absolutely came alive. I think they hit a home run.
But Michael Sean Wright is a filmmaker, a podcaster, a thinker, and a dreamer. his company is Nice Fish Films, and he uses Facebook. Now, see, this is the thing that I think is kind of interesting. We were talking about how Facebook has made this dramatic pivot, gone from basically what was a company that made a private website for everybody, that anybody could share with friends and family, to what is essentially public. And you're right. I didn't like the private Facebook that much. I felt like they were trying to get too much information about me and pretending that it was private when it wasn't. And now the new Facebook is basically admitting the truth. It's all public. So I don't mind it so much. But I have a feeling that most people who are used to Facebook aren't going to be real happy with it. How do you use Facebook as a, I just read a tweet. Somebody said the new search engine optimization is SMO, social media optimization. And I think you're a master of this, Michael. How do you do social media optimization?
I think all media is social, right? All of our conversations want to be social. So when we talked about traditional media was monodirectional. But remember in radio when we all leaned together and we would listen like we're listening to you right now? Like I'm listening to you on KFI. I've got you on Skype. I'm watching you on live.twit.tv. I mean, it's multi-Leo first. And I'm tweeting you. And I'm Google Plusing you. And I'm knocking on your door in Facebook. It's about relationships.
Interesting.
Right?
Interesting. So do you use Facebook as a personal platform for family and friends, or do you use it as a public platform, or do you do both?
I don't know if I have a separation. I like to think that, it used to be that, Twitter made you not like the people you don't know. No, wait a second. No, Facebook made you dislike the people you knew, and Twitter liked the people you don't know. But I think that that's changing. I think people are becoming more aware of what Facebook is you put on Facebook, goes everywhere, stays permanent, and I think people are really starting to mature in the conversation level. So I use it both for my friends, my family, and my professional contacts.
If you're in Dana Point, go over to the Ralphs there and say hi to Michael. He's taking signatures to ban the plastic bag. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Thanks, Michael. Now, bandwidth. Oh boy. Oh boy. How do we explain bandwidth? It's a great question. And what is it? Is bandwidth like water or gas? Is it stuff that has to be created? And it isn't. It's really bandwidth per se is the size of a pipe, bigger or littler. How many bits we can shove through the pipe. But I think when people talk about bandwidth, they're really talking about the bits, the data that's going through that pipe. Depends on how they're using the term bandwidth. So I'll start at your home. When you've got your computer up and your browser up, and you load a website, the data for that website, or the data from your email, or the data for anything that comes through the internet to you, is coming through. It's not exactly a pipe, but you can think of it as a pipe. It's electronic, of course, but think of it as a pipe. It's bits of data coming from a computer out there through the internet, which is often drawn as a little cloud, to your home. Those bits are just like they are, data encapsulated in packets that are transmitted by essentially electrons moving through the pipe. Pipe is usually copper, but it can be fiber, in which case it's light, not electrons. But the idea is the same, which is bits of data are transmitted all over the country. There are big, giant pipes called backbones that crisscross the nation. There are big underwater trunks that go across the Atlantic and the Pacific. Essentially, the whole world is interconnected by a series of tubes. It wasn't exactly inaccurate. The internet isn't the series of tubes, of course. It's the data that's carried over that series of tubes, but that's how it comes to us, is through electrical connections. The amount of data that can be shoved through an electrical connection is typically called your bandwidth. So if you can get 12 megabits a second of data, that's your bandwidth, 12 megabits a second. More means that you don't have to wait so long for the web page to build, because a web page is really a download. It's not something that comes to you in an instant. It's hundreds of kilobytes, maybe more, of data that has to be transmitted one bit at a time to you. So the more bits of data that can come through that pipe, the faster that web page will emerge on your screen. The faster your email will come down. It's not that the bits are moving faster, understand. It's just that you get more bits per second. You have a fatter pipe. The speed of the bits is constant. It's 300,000 kilometers per second. It's the speed of light. It doesn't get faster. It just gets more bits per second. Fatter tubes. So when you sign up for an internet connection, your tube goes to the central internet service provider, who buys their connectivity in a fatter pipe from somebody upstream. They have their own internet service provider and on up. Mostly they're run by the telcos, believe it or not. Verizon, Sprint, AT&T, these are the companies that own the big cross-country backbones. Comcast probably has its own backbones, and it's more complicated because, of course, some companies have direct connections to each other. Your internet service provider, for instance, if it's Comcast, may have a direct connection to Google. It doesn't go over the public backbones. They have a direct pipe. It's as if they've got a pipe between themselves. It's called a peering relationship. So it's a very complicated thing, and if you look at a map of the internet, it's almost as complicated as the brain. But that's the idea of the internet, is that these interconnections, it's not linear. They're all independent. You can take out a section and it can route around it. It can still process. It can still work. So it's almost too complicated even for humans to grok. Don't feel bad if you don't get it. If you read the bandwidth page on Wikipedia, which is an excellent page, by the way. But don't feel bad if it doesn't make a lot of sense to you. It's a fairly complicated system, but that's why we draw it as a little puffy cloud. Because it's easier to understand as a little puffy cloud than it is to understand how it works. It's actually a fascinating thing, and understanding the way it works is often very inspiring because it's so elegant. The people who designed this were such great thinkers, and it's a remarkable system that works quite well. Oh, we got so many calls and so little time. Let's get through as many as I can, starting with Robert in Camarillo, California. Robert Leo Laporte, the tech guy.
Hey, how you doing, Leo?
Great. How are you?
Good. I have a new product I'm excited about. It's a camera mount that uses a C-clamp for the mounting.
Cool.
And I just wanted your advice on how to market it online.
Have you already made it, or you just invented it?
No, we have it. We have about 500 of them.
Okay.
And website. I got the website up and running last week.
What's the website?
It's cameramountclamp.com.
Good name. That's easy. It's very self-explanatory. I was going to say, if you hadn't yet produced it, one of the things that people are doing these days a lot is using something called Kickstarter. I have seen so many inventions go from a prototype to success using Kickstarter, because it's both fundraising and promotion. In fact, I have a feeling that some of the people who put promotions on Kickstarter of things that they want to build or make already got it coming out, that produced, and all the details have already been worked out, but they're looking for the promotion that Kickstarter offers. The way Kickstarter works is you put together a proposal, and then you ask people to fund it. And of course, many of the proposals are creative things like films and video, but a lot of them are physical hardware. In fact, the most successful Kickstarter project I know was a watch band that you could hook your iPod Nano into, turn your Nano into a watch. They raised a ton of money. They sold a ton of them, but putting it on Kickstarter. Now, you're a little farther along, unfortunately, which means you don't need the money. You don't need the fundraising. You do need the promotion. I think, coming on a radio show and saying cameramountclamp.com is probably a pretty good start. Spread the word that way. Justin in Malibu, California. You're next. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Hi, Justin.
Hi, Mr. Laporte.
Welcome. What can I do for you?
Hi. So I've been listening to your show almost every weekend for the past 3 years. I'm 13 years old, love technology. I've gone to a lot of tech camps for the past 5 years or so. In this year, I went to a really interesting camp at Stanford for designing iPhone apps.
Wow, you must be super smart, Justin. That's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah.
Stanford has the best-known iPhone course for undergraduates. You can actually watch it on iTunes U for free, and it's amazing. And many great iPhone apps have come out of that class. So I think that's a great summer camp for you. So did you create an app?
I did. It's called Help Now. It's kind of an emergency notification panic button combination type of thing. In case of an emergency, you press the big red button and it will notify your family members.
What a great idea.
Thank you.
Is it on the iTunes store yet?
It is. Just about 2 weeks ago, it is live.
You're 13. That's awesome. How much do you charge for Help Now?
99 cents.
And have you made some money?
I have, but that's my question.
Well, we're out of time. Can you call next week? Because we are out of time completely, but I'm glad we could give you a plug. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Have a great geek week.